Thank you, and thank you for staying, for those of you who participated in the first esteemed panel. Peter sitting right there. I told Peter my panel's going to be better. My name is Jeannie Diefenderfer. I'm a trustee and graduate of engineering school, and I am thrilled to be moderating this panel of 3 alums. We have Jen Bokoff, Ivy Vo, and Maggie Riddle. And when our last panelist shows up, we're going to have Ancy come down and join us. And what's interesting about this panel is that we have graduates from actually years that are really varied. So 2008, 2013, 2009, and actually 1996 and others, and 1984. So I am the class of 2013, as you can see. Just saying. I don't know about these ladies. You can make that guess later. So I graduated many, many moons ago, and what we wanted to do today, really, and I really would like to make this interactive, and it was very helpful for me to listen to the conversation that went on in the previous panel, because as a trustee, obviously, I get to hear a lot about what's going on in the school, and it's been a very long time. Honestly, I graduated in 1984. I was a chemical engineer, and I was the first person from my high school from New York to come to Tufts, which is sort of interesting. So I went to school when Jean Maillet was still the president. There's Ancy. Hello. Good to see you too. Ancy Verdier. And you'll catch up. I will. And and the first, I would say, 10 years or so, I really was so busy working, I didn't engage at all. I get the obligatory, annual call. Do you want to give money? I say, no, I'm still paying off my student loan. So no, I'm not going to do that. And years later, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who graduated with me. Some of you may know him, Yanis Miaoulis, who was the Dean of Engineering School, who was my classmate. And I said, my God, you're the Dean of Engineering School? Long story short, he got me engaged back, and here I am, right? So we all have our individual stories, yes? And I don't want to talk, all of us just do all the monologue. I really want to hear from you as well. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves briefly as to their little story and how they got here, so to speak. And then we're going to get into some other thoughts around what is different ways that we all can engage. I mean, I'm singing to the choir a little bit here. You all have volunteered to show up, right? Sacrifice your time to be here with us. So there's a reason for that. So what we want to do is be really intentional at the end of this session to make a commitment to each other that as we think about all the things that we do today in how we want to engage with institution, in all the great ways that it gave to us, what are the things that we want to do more of? We want to ask the institution to help us, be efficient and effective in doing that, and think about what are the real tangible things that maybe 1, or maybe 2 if we're really aggressive about what we can do as we leave. So think about that while we're talking, please. I'm going to pass it this way. Oh, you have it. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Maggie Riddle, class of 2013. I was on the women's basketball team at Tufts, and after I graduated, I was less involved in terms of volunteering. I was just trying to figure out how to adult, so less engaged. I would come back for my alumni game, and that was about it. But then a Tufts athletic alumni group was founded about 4 years ago. And that was right up my alley. When I was an undergrad, I would help out with marketing initiatives on campus to unite athletes with the broader campus. And this was ultimately doing the same thing, but just from a professional standpoint and uniting a lot of the networking opportunities that are kind of siloed right now by team. So became a member, and now I'm an executive board member of it, so that's awesome. And I've also helped out, this past year was my 5th year reunion, so I was on the committee, the planning committee for that.
Hi, I'm Ivy Vo, class of 2009. Hi, 2009. I'm originally from San Diego, but I now live in Paris, France. And I've been there since I graduated in 2009. And I actually got to start in volunteering because President Monaco was actually coming over for his European tour, and he was in Paris. And we had a lovely staff member there, Jonathan Kaplan, right up there. Aww. He was at the event, and he was recruiting people to chair the Tufts Alumni chapter in Paris. So he offered to wine and dine us, as you do in Paris, and so I agreed to meet him with some other alums, obviously. And Ariel Carpenter, who's now in Houston, she and I decided to co-chair the Tufts Alumni chapter in Paris, and I've been doing that since 2012, and then I've met other alums, such as Vicki Garth, who is my co-chair on the International Committee of the Alumni Council, and so my mission is to spread volunteer engagement internationally.
Hi, I'm Jen Bokoff. I'm class of 2008, live in Brooklyn, New York. And my senior year, I was one of the recipients of the Senior Award, which, as many of you know, your gift to the Tufts Alumni Council, if you're on the council, your donation every year actually goes into gifts for seniors who win these awards. And it's an $1,000 gift, and it's presented by whoever is the Tufts University Alumni Association president at the time. And at the time, it was Sunny Breed, who many of you know. And I remember a really great conversation with her where she encouraged me to join the Alumni Council, get involved. And one of the greatest benefits is you'll see jumbos everywhere. And so I became a transitional member of the Alumni Council and have since thankfully been voted back on, and it's true. I see jumbos everywhere in the world. It's one of the most exciting parts about having gone here. I liked my time here, but I've liked even more being an alumni for getting to meet people who I didn't know on campus for various reasons. And right after I graduated, and along with being on the Alumni Council, I actually was a part of starting Young Friends of Tufts Advancement. Also, shout out to Jonathan Kaplan, popular man this session, in a couple other cities. And that's basically the group that encouraged giving with younger alumni. And that's because I sort of weirdly love fundraising. So this actually helped catalyze my current career, which I can talk about in a little bit.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Ancy Verdier. As you can see, those numbers behind my name, I've never really left Tufts. I graduated from here in 1996. John is my classmate, and so is David. And so it's nice to see familiar faces. I got a little lost because Cabot was never a place that we ever really went to. So I talked to some students along the way, and I saw one of my classmates in the bookstore. It was really interesting. So I would tell you that my journey as a Tufts alum, like I said, it continues because I went to the dental school after I was done, and it was a transition because, I thought, as soon as I was done with undergrad, I'm leaving. I was going to join the stock market. Everybody was making money back in 1996, and that's what I was going to do because I was president of the student body at the time, and we had a lot of discussions in 1996 about stuff that was happening on campus, and things were changing at the time. You were a leader at 18 years of age and had an office in the campus center, and beeper and internet just came on, and so that was a transitional time, right? And then after that, my dad turned to me because I gave the speech at graduation. He says, "Okay, that's great. What are you going to do now?" I was like, oh. Then I called Dr. DiBiagio up, who was a dentist, and he said, "You ever think about dental school?" And I said, wow, okay, no. Made a connection, made a connection for me with the dean of the dental school, called me up while I was on flight. "Hey, listen, why don't you apply?" That's the family connection. I feel like that's what Tufts feels like to me. It's a family, right? And it extends itself. And then you make the phone calls and the networking. That's what we bought into a lot of the times. And then after I was done with dental school, my dad turned to me and he said, "What's next?" I said, "Dad, there's a lot of tuition money here. What can we possibly keep doing here?" He said, "No, you have to specialize." And I said, "Great, okay, I'll specialize." And I stayed in the dental school. And it was great. I went to Harvard for a little bit. I did a post-bac program. It was all right. I still love Tufts. Still love Tufts. So what I say is that I've made a lot of friends throughout this opportunities that I have, whether it was in the undergrad or in the dental school. And like I said, I've been involved with fundraising efforts because of all those numbers behind my name. So I can go to each classes and see people and recognize and say, hey, listen, if I don't bleed brown and blue, I don't know who does, but I'm the advocate for it because the only thing I knew after high school was this place. And the connections and family members, I call them family because that's what they are to me, and we still keep in contact with one another. So volunteering was easy, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of like an extension. I have to give back. There was no other choice for me,
That's
right?
interesting.
I have all those diplomas in my office, and when people say, oh, you went to Tufts, they're like, impressive, I love that. I love it. So I want to keep encouraging that, whether it's at the dental school, whether it's at the university level, it makes it's easy. And I know I'm talking to the choir here,
Yeah.
but it's really something that we have to advocate for our own school. And when we see our diplomas up there, the kind of things that are happening on this campus and the kind of people that we're attracting, yes, when I see somebody, I talk with them, I said, when I talk to a patient and I see a parent, they're like, my kid's applying to schools, I said, are they going to Tufts? Have you ever thought about Tufts? I said, and then I start giving my spiel. So for me, it's easy.
Yeah.
And volunteering and asking for money, it's not really asking for money. What you're trying to do is you're volunteering your time. You want to encourage and promote the school that's done so much for yourself.
And it's such a common theme for so many of us, and that we certainly learn from people ahead of us, and it's something that it's so nice to see folks who graduate after us who have the same sort of feeling and love. And often, and I want you to think about the kind of questions we are talking on the panel, because we really want to get your thoughts on this as well. And that is, I think about, as a professional, we're asked sort of, what's your 30-second elevator speech, right? When somebody asks you, so what do you do for a living? I worked for Verizon Communications for 28 years. 28 years, my mother thought I worked for AT&T. So clearly, I didn't do a good job of elevator speech for 30 seconds. And after a while, I said, forget it, whatever. It just sounds good. But one of the things that I think about, because so many folks come to us as soon as they find out we're affiliated with Tufts, we graduated from Tufts, or however, say, parents, students. I talk to a lot of juniors and seniors in high school who are friends of friends of friends, and my kids' friends and their siblings, and they want to know, so why do you love Tufts so much? What is it about Tufts that you all Tufts people, jumbos, have this love? And over the years, it didn't come right away for me, but over the years, I have honed my narrative on what makes Tufts unique. Because let's face it, there's big competition out there, right? And what words do you use in a very succinct and concise way when you have very small time to explain to a parent or a potential student who want to come in? What do you say to that? So what I have come to say is that baseline-wise, because everybody looks at the stats and they know, oh yeah, you're very highly competitive and you have to be like super good on GPA and SATs and ACT scores, blah, blah. You have to do all kinds of extracurricular activities. But there are a lot of schools that fall into that category. And what I say to particularly young people is, on top of all that, Tufts to me is about we like to create an environment where we value collaboration. We love a good fight, like competition. But at the end of the day, we really like to work together. I see it happening at the undergraduate level. I see it happening at the graduate level. I see it happening across schools. And a lot of schools are competition in our category. Some of them are very well known for really being super competitive amongst within the school. And they take great pride in that. I think we take great pride in collaboration. The other thing I find is that at the end of the day, we really want to produce a product, right? Because we talk of our students as sort of leaving this institution into the world, who truly care about making a difference in the world. And we could define world in a whole different ways, right? It's your local community, it can be your neighborhood, it can be your country, it can be the world. But whatever it is you do, finding your own definition of success, because you as a human being is making an impact. To me, that's what it makes Tufts special. And because I really believe in it, right, I could really sort of explain in very few words to these. Now, that's not for everybody, right? I've talked to certainly people, parents and students. You know, that sounds really great, makes me feel like warm and fuzzy inside, right? But I don't know. You know, sometimes I really want to go to XY school. I want to major in finance. I want to go to Wall Street, and nothing against Wall Street. And, you know, I want to be a gazillionaire by the time I'm 30, right? That's okay, too. I mean, we have I'm sure lots of those from Tufts, too. But the way you talk about the school, to me, matters, right? So I'm going to ask the panelists, so what is the words that you use when you describe Tufts based on your experience? Who wants to go?
Intense curiosity. I think whenever there are Tufts people in a room and people don't know they went to Tufts, but they know there's something in the air, it's because there's an authenticity in the questions that are being asked and the connections that are being made. And often, whether you're an extrovert and an introvert in the same field, in the same geography, or totally different people doing different things, there's this intense desire to learn from each other and form connections of like, oh, I know someone you should talk to. Like, it's out of people's mouths before they can even help it. And it's just this need to make the world a better place through connection, through that collaborative spirit, but also through listening and understanding in a way that folks who go to other schools maybe it's a little more of a superficial type of questioning to see like, what's in it for me in this conversation? Should we exchange business cards and move on? That's not really how tough schmoozing goes. It's very authentic, very curious.
That's great. Wonderful.
I would use the word humble intelligence every time I would recruit students for internship programs at my job, and every tough student compared to students from other universities, or even just working with my peers and knowing their background, there's just this humble intelligence. And when you're in a meeting, Jumbo isn't necessarily going to be the loudest one in the room, but they're definitely going to be the smartest. And I think it's just that type of leadership that really embodies Tufts.
That's awesome.
I would say impactfulness, right? So the biggest thing for me is that the people who I met from internationally and even nationally are what makes up this campus, right? So when you can go anywhere all over the world and still run into someone from Tufts because you're wearing your Tufts gear and they actually know where that is, that's amazing. We're in Medford, Somerville. This is not a big town, right? But people know about Tufts and you hear it on the news. Fletcher School, nutrition school, dental school, veterinary school. I left Massachusetts and I said I'd never come back. I can't get away from the nest, right? It can't fly away because that impactfulness. I think that's what you find when you get Tufts people together and they start to talk. It's easy.
Awesome.
And so Ancy actually used a word earlier that I really liked, family. Family, for me, all the people that I went in my class, all my professors, all the people who are here now, the staff members, that really, it's a Tufts family, and you really create lifelong connections, connecting to what you were saying earlier. Whenever you meet someone from Tufts, it's so exciting. You can connect on, oh, what did you major in? Which dorm did you live in? Did you do the naked quad run? There are always things to connect on, and it's really amazing, and it just creates this immediate bond that's authentic, and that's just so important to me, to have this genuine bond that's lasting.
So, does anybody want to share? Who's bold enough to share with us? What's your narrative? Yes, of course, Diana. Yeah.
I want Ivy because I got to know Ivy by participating in some of these Tufts events.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we use my?
We have to use the mic. Okay. Gabriel's coming. Thanks.
What I wanted really Ivy to talk about, when I got to know Ivy was when I went to Talois, where they were doing some international alumni something or other. I was becoming a trustee. I should go to Talois. I should know about it. And then I was with her when she did the Global Reach event in London and also in Berlin. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about sort of, this is sort of Meet Our Volunteers, but some of the ways that you really have engaged and broadened, sort of your alumni network by these events that you probably would have any idea that you would do when you were here as a student.
Of course. Yeah, so as I said, I co-chair the International Committee with Vicky Garth, and one of our main initiatives is Tufts Global Reach. So some of you know about it, some of you have been to Tufts Global Reach, some of you have been to several of them. Tufts Global Reach is a form of an alumni weekend that we bring around the world. So, you know, for the international community, it isn't super easy to come back to campus. Medford is not the easiest place to get to, so we want to bring Tufts around the world. And in keeping this in mind, we picked cities where we had good alumni constituencies and we had good critical mass and really interesting culture, and we want to combine culture and Tufts, all that together. And so, as Diana was saying, we've been to Talloires, we went to Berlin, we've been to London, and just this shameless plugging on my part, but our next destination is Mumbai, and we're going to Mumbai in January 18th to 20th. So, and but anyways, these alumni weekends are really wonderful because they're so exciting. We're talking about Tufts. We have a lot of senior administrators to come out and talk about university updates, but we're also incorporating the local culture and the local flavor. And you talk about intense curiosity, right? Like we're learning. We're always learning, and we're always desiring to learn and meet and create connections. And these weekends for me are just really, really important. In London, we had 200 people come out, which is incredible. And and I just really value. Thank you, Diana, for bringing.
Thank you.
We had Lord Michael Dobbs. So if anyone is a fan of House of Cards, so Michael Dobbs is the writer of House of Cards, and he was able to invite us to the House of Parliament for a dinner, and it was. Oh, House of Lords, sorry, House of Cards. Did I say House of Cards? Yeah. I'm jet lagged, guys. Sorry,
Everybody's
jet
gonna go
lag.
to London now.
The House of
London, here
Lords.
we go.
But we had private tours. It was really wonderful, and it was just a really special event. Saul Gittleman, everyone. You want to come up here, Diana? Come up here, Diana. Diana's our biggest fan. I love Diana.
That's fantastic.
Yes, come, Diana, come. Saul Gittleman talking at the Bundestag in Berlin, amazing, right? And beautiful weather. He was there. It was just wonderful. And we were so lucky to be able to bring Tufts globally.
I love the idea of taking it to where people are, right? Yeah. Rather than always, nothing wrong with bringing people like this together, but I think going to where our constituents are, our alums are, I think is also a great idea because it also gives us an opportunity to do cross-cultural things, which we don't get to do on our own time, so to speak, by choice, right? Yes?
Jeannie, to answer your question,
yes?
is it still on?
Not on.
No.
Okay, sometimes they go on out.
I know, sorry.
It is on. Sort of. There we go. You have to point it towards yourself, motion sensor. Jeannie, to answer your question, when I think of Tufts, I think of light. We light a candle at matriculation, we light a candle at commencement, and when we leave Tufts, we burn it bright. We burn it bright for life. So for me, Tufts is light.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome.
That was less than 30 seconds.
You win the prize. Any other thoughts? So one of the things that oh, there's another, no? Oh, hello.
Thank you. What I always tell the students I interview for Tufts is that we're a dream catcher school, and I think it captures what you said before, that we collaborate and we work together. And so many people know schools where to succeed you have to stab someone else in the back. And I just your dream doesn't require stabbing someone else in the back. You follow your dream, and Tufts is a school that through all its different opportunities allows you to follow your dream.
Right. I love that. And one of the things that I tell young people about Tufts is that, particularly nowadays, because I think the times are really difficult for young people. Well, I guess it's difficult for a lot of us. But it just to think about all the pressure, all the studying, and then where they're going to go. And when I talk to even college students, this feeling, and of course it's been so long for me, I have to kind of think back. Say, the feel like if you don't make that perfect decision, you're going to not make it, or you're making the wrong choice. And, the wisdom that comes from having lived life, right, is actually it's really not that sequential, right? Life is sort of, kind of meanders around, and that's what makes life. And I think one of the wonderful things about Tufts people is the willingness to kind of open up the definition of what makes great impact, great sort of relationships and collaboration, all that, and we help each other. I always stop by anybody around my small town of Chester, New Jersey with a Tufts sticker, and I wait, because I'm dying to see who it is. You know, and I run and talk to some interesting people. I met one lady who was a graduate of like 1935, and we had an amazing conversation, right? So somebody I would otherwise never say hello and talk to, but just the Tufts stickers and our respective cars kind of forced us together. The other thing is, as you have graduated, and I love the fact that we have such a sort of variety of years, because I certainly had my struggles in terms of working full time, not having enough, then having a family and having young kids and trying to work and get involved. So I went through my ups and downs in terms of volunteerism. So as you think about how your journey went from the day you graduated, all of your intentions of engagement, and then the reality hits with working lives and family and other, how did that go? And what can you share?
Yeah, I mean, to my point earlier, when I first graduated, I didn't really know how I could get involved with the limited time I had. And it was just kind of fortunate, right place, right time, that the Tufts Athletics Alumni Group got founded. And that just kind of aligns with my industry as well. I'm in marketing and branding, and I worked in sports at the Patriots, so it aligned, like the stars aligned. That being just a member there versus now being on the executive board, that's totally different, and I'm trying to learn how to manage and delegate and try to still not only inspire the members, but then make sure that, okay, we had a call a month ago, and are you still excited about that event? So, each time it has its own challenges, and so it's definitely, my engagement has peaked. I'm looking towards graduate school right now, so I'm sure I will be entering debt, and I won't have time, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, so I'm going to be entering a different phase of my life, and so that engagement is going to change as well.
Awesome.
I guess a few comments. First, like early in my career, putting aside the fact that I was working for the IRS, a very stimulating place, I was really eager to just dig into my Tufts volunteerism and would do whatever needed to be done. So we've all put in like grunt work at different times in our career, and especially like early on, it's like you're a sponge and you want to meet all the people, do all the things, be at all the events, and just like really show up in whatever capacity you can. So I feel like my volunteerism really started there. And as my career started evolving, and I also started to better understand my skills and how I was best leveraged and what I was bringing to the table, I think the roles I started to take on and also like say no to, just the idea of saying no was like a development in and of itself. But thinking about like the leadership roles that I could play and how leadership roles at Tufts could actually influence my leadership in my career and the jobs I was having, that was a pretty big deal. And so two other things maybe worth highlighting. I've actually hosted Tisch summer interns the last 3 summers, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made as a team leader, because you're getting funded capacity of brilliant people for a summer, and it's a really neat way to think about how what you do in your day job can actually link back to a university that you know and trust and love. So that's been a really big deal, and like that's another way that, again, like relationship with Tufts has shifted, because I wouldn't have done that early in my career. I was still learning myself, and I didn't think I could offer someone a good internship, but now we can, which is cool. Another thing is, in the course of some of my work, so I work at a place called Foundation Center. Some of you who work for a nonprofit have probably heard of it. We're sort of a meta nonprofit in the sense that we're a hub for nonprofit data collection, research, and learning. So obvious intersections that I could go on and on about, but I won't unless you have specific questions. In the course of some of my research there, I've been really fascinated by youth grant making. So it's a form of participatory grant making where young people are actually making decisions about funding in the communities that they're a part of. And I had actually been a part of a pilot program here through the X-College. I think Robin left, but someone tell her I said it, where the Sunshine Lady Foundation, which is Doris Buffett, Warren Buffett's sister, had given $10,000 to the class to give away in the local community. So we learned grant writing and grant making. Anyway, fast forward to my job, and I didn't realize that this was like a thing that people are doing, not just in the US, but around the world. And so when I did realize that, I started researching it. And lo and behold, a fellow Jumbo was also on the cutting edge of the research. But she and I realized that even though we were the same class year at Tufts and the same major, sociology, not a big major, we never once talked. And we questioned why, and it came down to race, which is something that I want to raise in this room because diversity has come up a couple times. And since then, we've had some really intense and important conversations about how all of the great opportunities on campus for people from different communities can actually serve to segregate at times. And so she and I have actually found a lot of community in the time since Tufts, and it has helped me advance some of these conversations on campus in my volunteer capacity. And you can't do that at the beginning of your volunteerism because you're just meeting people, they don't know who you are. Hopefully people here somehow know where I'm coming from and it's all in like the good interest. But once you can start recognizing problems, part of like what I absolutely love about volunteering is them being able to like tackle solutions and really like talk about it in meaningful ways. So that's that's a bit of my evolution.
That's awesome, Jen. Thank you.
So I have two young girls, one 6-year-old and one 7-month-old. So for me, life changed a lot after graduate school. Like dental school, I was just trying to put my head down and just trying to make it, right? So you're not thinking about all the volunteer aspects. You're just trying to make some money and get through life, right? And start life. So when you start having children, that starts to be different, right? They take the priority in you. So when I get a call from David that says, hey, listen, Ancy, can you volunteer and do something? What do you think about being on the Alumni Council? You have to say no sometimes and not spread yourself too thin. Currently, I'm vice president of the Dental Alumni Association. So that's one aspect for me that I've chose to focus on, but I also try to stay in touch with the university. And I think the challenge for us here is that as people start to spread across the country, DC, Texas, international, how do you get those people's attention? I think that's the hard part and then when you start getting married, having kids, doing all those different things, and then you go to graduate school, does the graduate school take precedence over Tufts, right? Because a lot of people, they go through Tufts and they say, oh, I went to Columbia Law. Oh, okay, great. Well, Columbia Law takes precedent. I wear my Columbia hat instead of my Tufts hat. I'm biased because I never left, right? So, but that's the challenge when I start to see my classmates and they went to Ohio State or Michigan or places like that, they forgot about their experience at Tufts, right? It's just like when your high school sends you something in the mail, you're like, high school? I don't even remember high school. Maybe I have a couple of friends from there, right? So how do you the challenge I think here is how do we keep people still stay engaged when they leave Tufts undergrad? And if they stay in the graduate, great, that's easy. But for me, when I was at the dental school, I kept jumping up and down and said, are you still taking people from Tufts? Are you still taking people
I'm
from
curious,
Tufts?
how many people went to graduate school after Tufts that's not Tufts? Wow. Yeah, most of us, right? And somehow we choose to engage with Tufts more, right? That's why we're here. Hopefully you're not going to that school afterwards. No, but it is a choice we make. And I hope it's kind of the reasons we talked about. I'm going to turn it around again. Any thoughts or questions or comments you want to make as we talk about?
Yes. Can we all use microphones? Thanks.
Class of '86, and I think I realized today when I was talking to George Hirsch, who was the founder of the Tufts Lawyers Association, which is essentially how I got back.
Right.
I was pregnant for the first Tufts Lawyers on the Hill, which was over 15 years ago, and that was the beginning of me getting engaged. I mean, I had done TAP, but that was the beginning of me getting engaged. My kids are now over 15, so, and they're twins. So, you know, and I'm a full-time working, you know, I mean, and I think I got involved in the Tufts Lawyers Association because I was about to become a partner and I needed to make rain. So I guess my point is the fact that you are starting a family or going to grad school, it doesn't, I mean, you somehow find the time if you're engaged. And what has gotten me engaged was meeting classmates who I barely knew when I was in school. And now we're friends and meeting more people from all different classes. I mean, it sort of grows on itself.
Right, right. Did I hear? Oh, there's another. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it working? Okay.
Yep.
Just as a kind of speaking to the roundabout kind of way that you came to what you studied in terms of what you did afterwards, and then also coming back to Tufts and constantly having this thread, I feel obligated to share that I was a child development major in my undergrad at Tufts, and actually Neil was my first boss. Worked at WNET after graduation. Was feeling like I just kind of was craving something a little bit different, and I actually came back to Tufts and got my master's in human factors engineering, which is a little different than television, but at the same time I feel like I feel eternally grateful for Tufts to have allowed me to think that was okay. So going through my undergrad as a child development major, and then returning to the School of Engineering and thinking, yeah, I can do that. I attribute that to Tufts and kind of opening my horizon a little bit and knowing that that was something that I could kind of, it felt like kind of coming back home and learning something a little bit different, and then going back out into the world and seeing what that had to offer. So just as somebody who has never left as well, like Ancy, yeah, I think it's a really powerful thing.
Oh, that's great. We have another gentleman who wants to in the back. Thank you. Oh, you okay?
Hi, thank you. My name's Ken Genta, and I graduated in '78 from Tufts and '82 from Fletcher. And so I also went to graduate school here.
You like
But
it?
I also have a long family history at Tufts, and I'm a product of a first gen. And my father was a first gen student here, as were several of my uncles, one of them a trustee at the dental school. But when young people, I still talk to a lot of young people about Tufts, and I guess the way I explain it, because I was a middle-class kid and a townie from Linfield, Mass. Yeah. So this was a big deal for me to be here, but that it was eclectic, and that it's interesting, and it encourages people to cross-major. And so when I talk to young people now, I said, you could be a dance engineering major. Tufts loves that, because you're creating a mind. You're not really creating a profession. Yeah. You're creating someone who can navigate whatever the world is going to be later. Right. And I think that's the greatest strength of Tufts, that it always has been and still is.
Thank you. That's a great story. Any other? Oh.
Hi, my name is Moises Cohen, class of 2011. I just graduated from a grad school that's not Tufts, and a lot of my friends my classmates from Tufts are like starting to have babies, and people are really going through some changes. And so Ancy's point, it's an important point, and this is something we need to be thinking about, is how do we conserve this enthusiasm and like maintain the Tufts connection going forward. And before going to grad school, I was involved in starting a shared interest group for Tufts, and so I think just thinking back with my own experience with that, if the little insight that I might have is, I think we need to get really smart about providing programming that is helpful to people for their own lives. So when I was thinking about, when I was a very, very young alum, I'm still a young alum, but when I was a very, very young alum, I was really looking for certain types of career development experiences. And so that's why I got involved, because I saw ways for me to find career development by getting involved and giving back to Tufts. It's like a win-win. For my friends who are like going to become parents for their first time, like that, there can be actually, I don't know that this exists, there could be pretty cool community forming and like engagement with Tufts with other first-time parents. Agreed. And as you keep going through like different life stages and things that might be happening in people's lives, like I think that's how we should be thinking about engagement, because we're here not because we're just volunteers, and we're here because we're volunteers that we're also helping others like connect. Is how can what we do be actually useful for?
I like that a lot. I think that's a great idea. So rather than saying, as we go through stages of our lives where we sometimes feel like we need to check out to take care of more important things in our personal lives, rather than thinking of it that way, why don't we create infrastructure programming that's meant for different stages of growth in our lives so that we don't get disengaged, but we do it in a different way? I like it. So you volunteered to help us with that, right?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Yes, there's, hi, Pam.
If you were lucky enough to live in San Francisco, you could have been invited to the, what was it called, Dogs and Babies or something in the park they had recently. So some of the alumni groups are already doing it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight actually with the shared interest groups, they're part of what I love about the way that alumni organize is that it's not always by class year. I think there's something to life stage, and there's something really special about intergenerational gathering, especially as institutions like religion have sort of decreased overall in America. Like there aren't as many spaces that are inherently intergenerational, and so what's neat about some of those shared interest groups or like random events, as it were, is like you can connect across ages. And actually, I think like the development team, like it's happening across the university, but even just like in talking with Sean on development yesterday, you know, we were brainstorming this like round table dinner idea for people in their 30s and 40s who aren't like young alumni anymore, but who also aren't going to respond as well to being one-on-one asked for a large gift, because that's not how people are giving anymore. They're not giving to institutions. They're giving to causes. And the way they give to causes is through engaged conversation. And the way you have engaged conversation is by hosting these like cross-sectional events. So just want to highlight that like it is happening in a lot of different ways. And I think I've always appreciated that Tufts is willing to like support a budding idea. So it's like, you want to do that? Sure, let's figure out kind of where it lives and make it happen. Right. Save your receipt, though. Right. Always save the receipt.
Diana, you get to ask one more question, that's it.
So Tufts actually does this and has done it very effectively in connection with the college admissions process. And so, I mean, there are two ways that Tufts does this. If you interview, and part of I got engaged, I remember hearing about, interviewing students that were applying, and I remember thinking back, oh, that was such a great experience. I remember the alum that interviewed me, and I could see my oldest daughter, the college thing looming. I said, they say it's impossible to get into college. I got the Tufts. It can't really be that hard. I'm going to interview these kids, and I'll sort of see what they have, and then I'll learn something. Well, Tufts is sort of, so that's one way to sort of, for your own learning. Ancy, those girls will be applying to college before you know it. Just blink and you're there.
Saving the money.
But they also now, Tufts, the admissions does Admissions 101. So if you, as an alum, if you have a child that's a junior, sophomore or junior, you get invited back to campus for one day. They call it Admissions 101. And it is the most, they do it in Cohen Auditorium. It is absolutely fabulous. Exactly what it is, Admissions 101. What's involved in the college admissions process, and they sort of take the mystique out of it. It's really geared towards the student, and so my daughter participated in this. It was really wonderful. It wasn't about come to Tufts, but here's how you should think about the process. What you can expect, what you should be doing, framing it for the time, for the calendar year that you're doing it. And it wasn't. Anyway, my daughter really enjoyed it. She actually did it with Barbara's daughter that spring. So I think there's some of that, and maybe we could do more of that. But so for those of you that are young alums and you think, just keep that in the back of your mind.
Right. So as we start to go into so the last parts of our discussion, I want to switch to what is, if possible, one thing that you would like to get support from the institution to help you be even better engaged or more engaged or the way you want to. And then also, in addition, what is that one thing you would like to commit to yourself, perhaps once again, this time with more feeling, that you want to do leaving today? Who wants to go first?
I'll start.
Okay.
My brain is still taking
Okay,
time.
no.
I guess I would say one thing, especially as a young alum, it's hard to monetarily give back to Tufts, and sometimes a lot of the alumni engagement is a monetary donation, but I think it's positioning it more as, no, your time is just as much as valuable, and just recognizing the young alum and the contributions they are doing, whether it's showing up to an event like this, or, hey, you have been on this club over and over again, or something like that. And so not only recognizing, but helping me as an executive board member to identify those people as well. And I guess, what was the second part?
What's one thing that you would do more of as you leave, or you've done enough?
No, I just started. I guess I would just continue to especially tap into the recent graduates. I think that's just it's a great opportunity. We have connections with current teammates, current seniors who are looking to be in my shoes of, okay, I graduated, how can I give back? We can easily influence them to join Tufts Athletics Alumni Group.
Awesome, thank you.
I have two things.
Yeah.
I would like us to continue creating spaces like this for people to really get together and to discuss. These moments are so precious and valuable, and we get so much out of them. But in having these types of occasions, we need to also think about sustainability, which is, I think, Moises, you were talking about that, right? How to keep the momentum going and to, we're all excited, gung-ho right now, but when we leave this weekend, we're gonna go back to our lives. So really to think about how to maintain the level of engagement. And another thing is the university does so many wonderful things. There's so many updates. I receive so many newsletters, but I really would like the university to think about how we can package all of these updates and this information in a way that's easily digestible and for it to be accessible to everyone. I'm on the alumni council, so I think I'm privy to information that maybe other alumni aren't. And I know especially the international alums are always like, what is the university doing? Oh, you have a new building? Oh, wow. They don't, so how can we as a university be better at communicating all the wonderful work that we're doing? Because that really creates excitement.
Yeah.
And that's what really incites people to become engaged.
Right, thank you.
More marketing and communication staff.
I let you say that,
just
or
building on that in the sense that it's just so important, and I don't think that we're reaching all of the people that we could be reaching from the alumni body, especially when we're sometimes defining engaged alumni as those who give monetarily. I know we don't always, but sometimes we do, and I think it affects who we communicate with and how, and just the sorts of messaging we're constructing, and where we're going to reach people, and the types of events that we're building to reach people. I think there's just like an incredible staff in the Office of Alumni Relations, and we probably still need more so that they can do more focused thinking beyond just execution. So that's what I'd like more of. And then what was the second part? the what we want to commit more to.
Right.
In that vein, so on the flip side, I just committed yesterday in a conversation with Steve and others. I really want to help the social media guru Amy, who is like really a one-woman powerhouse. She is a 10-hour-a-week intern. I want to help her build the infrastructure she needs for effective use of social media, and that includes sort of figuring out where we all are in online communities to help her figure out how to get messages that she's sharing on like main Tufts platforms into like all of our little communications platforms. So I'm committing to do that this year.
That's a great idea. So.
Still me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just
You
say
don't
one
have to.
thing.
Okay,
I've committed a lot, haven't I? So, Moises, to get back what you said, I think for me, I think it's so my wife doesn't hate me every time I go to a Tufts event because I drag her to every event, and she just thinks that that's all my life is. I think creating the balance, right? I think that's going to be important. And I think that when we can reach out to others across the country and internationally, I think it's going to be important. So I'll give you an example. I was in New York when I was single and I had a lot of free time, and then they invited me to an event where I got to meet the new provost, right? I was a recent alum. I didn't have given any money. I just felt very special to be in that category. So I think when you can do things like that and engage people early and keep them committed, I think that's going to be the task that we have to do. Yeah, and putting the people who are here on campus out on the road.
Yeah, no, I agree.
To give updates. Like I love getting updates online, but face-to-face is something different.
So
true. Much better.
So true. So one idea we had was, as you think about the two questions I asked the panelists, if we were to suggest, and we could do one of two ways, we're going to hand out a little postcard that you can put your name and address on one side. This is snail mail, so you'll have an option. And on the other side of the card, write down what you want to commit that you will do after you leave this session. That's a little bit different, or maybe a little bit more focused, because you know how it is, right? We helicopter in for the weekend, we leave, regular life takes over, every day goes by, it gets kind of fuzzier and fuzzier, and then 2 years go by, we come back, and we get all excited again, right? So just an idea, and if you don't want snail mail, you could write down email on the top, and we could email it to you. So if you're interested in that exercise, we'll hand out the postcards. What do you think of the idea? Stupid? Great idea? No? What do you think? Okay, good? All right. We're going to hand it out, and then you could volunteer. It's an opt-in. It's not a mandatory. I like the idea of this because I know how I am when I leave. And I get fuzzy about, what did I say I was going to do? We always overcommit our time. Any other comments or questions for ourselves and panelists? Thoughts? Is there one thing that you would like more of? Oh, Brian.
I'll get it to you. Don't worry. I'll come to you.
Brian.
We work extra hard.
So I just want to follow up on Jen's comment, which is that many of us go back to different locations.
Yeah.
And I want to just, I've always found that the regional alliances, I guess that's one of the names that we use for the different cities that we're all in, that has local activities, are really important towards building engagement. And Ed and his team do a great job trying to keep the plates spinning on that. But there is they need more resources. And they need more resources to help us out in the field, to build the engagement, to create the events, to get faculty members to come out and visit. It's just, it's an overwhelming job because there's a lot of us out there. Yeah, and we all want to do great things for Tufts. And we sometimes run into a little bit of a snag on that front. So I follow up on Jen's comment.
Thank you.
Ed, you didn't pay me for that.
Pay him later.
He will later. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Jen. I'm going to get it over.
So if 300 of us, if 300 alumni, and we have much more than 300 alumni that are actively engaged and passionate about Tufts in our community, if 300 of us find 5 people each that have not given to give this year, that's 1,500 new gifts. Eric Johnson, how difficult is it to move our participation rate by 1 percentage point? 1,500 people is 1 percentage point. And that only takes 300 of us finding 5 people and getting them to give to Tufts. So that's my commitment
I'm
coming
willing
out
to
of
commit.
this. Okay?
All right, put it
5
on the
people
postcard.
in 1 calendar year. And doing this for 4 years,
Yeah,
now you
I
can
love
start
it.
seeing the percentage points moving up. 300 people, imagine if we had 1,000 people giving
Right.
5 people each. This is doable, folks.
I agree.
Absolutely doable.
I love it. I love
and then
the idea.
the second thing,
Yeah.
Jen made a comment, what do we need?
Yeah.
Jen talked about marketing and communications to Tufts alumni. I believe that the Tufts brand is incredibly strong. I mean, Peter Dolan talked about punching above our weight,
Yep.
right? Tufts always punches above its weight, but the world doesn't know it. So I believe that our marketing communications to the world about what Tufts is doing
Yeah.
needs to be better.
Right. So more brand recognition and communicating and
Globally.
marketing. Yeah,
So
globally.
that when alumni can brag to their friends who are non-alumni about being
Yeah.
from Tufts,
Yeah.
and that makes you feel good about the university, and if you feel good, you give.
Thank you.
Well, in that vein, if anyone here is on Twitter, anyone on Twitter? Anyone on LinkedIn? Anyone on the internet?
Yay!
Okay, so you can all put...
Anyone on internet?
Yeah, you can all put in your internet bios
Yeah.
that you're a proud jumbo. When I did that in my Twitter profile, new connections happened, and I can tell you
I
some
love
of
it.
them resulted in gifts. So put it in your internet profile, whatever that is, unless it's AOL.
And also lead it, Twitter. Make sure you communicate through that as well. I was told by Kate not to lose you because there are announcements coming up. Any other questions? One really burning comment question you want to say before we close? Was this helpful? That's great. Thank you. It's very much fun. Oh.
It's on, just do it. Okay. It's on. Hi there, Kate Kaplan, and on behalf of the Planning Committee of Lead It, we have presents for our panelists and moderator. And then I wanted to kind of bring a couple of the points together and then give you a preview of the rest of your afternoon. So presents first.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm Kate Kaplan. I am on the Lead It Planning Committee. I am a parent of 2 current students here at Tufts, which is the most exciting thing on my name tag. I got my graduate degree here in 1995. I did not go here undergraduate, so I hear a lot of stuff about undergraduate pride, so there are some graduate students here in the audience. And I'm also an elected, I'm an alumni trustee, and I was elected by the alumni body. So that's just a little bit about my volunteerism. And so we had a panel of volunteers, but actually this whole weekend is a celebration of you as volunteers. And by virtue of you being here, you've self-selected as being phenomenal volunteers. So thank you to everybody for being here. So there were a couple things that came up. Costa saying, let's get, if 300 of us, reached out to 5 people, just think about the reach. And Maggie's comment about, just don't have a lot of money to give back. Well, we want to tell you that every gift is jumbo. And so you can donate the cost of a nice 6-pack of IPA or something like that, and it really actually makes a big impact. And there's an opportunity coming up in a couple weeks to actually do that, and it's Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is our busiest fundraising day of the year. And just to talk about participation rates, Giving Tuesday is a global day of philanthropy where all sorts of micro gifts really add up. So it started in 2012, and we were there in the beginning, which is no surprise, and we had 12 gifts the first year. Last year we had 7,500 gifts, and this year we're looking for 8,000. So just think about, those are all, small gifts, but they absolutely add up. There is a slide that I will, am I going to get to it? Thank you. Questions? Schedule of events? I don't know. And Giving Tuesday. Okay, great. So this year, we've got great plans to get up to those 8,000 donors. We have 40 different challenge gifts across all the schools and university and programs to encourage giving. And we have a toolkit that's available that you can access from the Giving Days web link to help you with your outreach. So if everybody here committed on their postcard or to themselves to reaching out to a few people on Giving Tuesday and encouraging gifts, that would help us to get to our goal. So thank you for all of you who've already planned on doing that and all of you who are now planning on doing that.
For anyone who doesn't know when Giving Tuesday is, it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's early this year.
November 27th.
Yeah.
We had the way we got to our 7,500 donors last year was through 1,000 volunteers. So it's because of people like you sitting in this room. So so please make your gift first, and then forward emails to your friends and spread the word about Giving Tuesday. Thank you. So what happens now for the rest of the afternoon? The next session are your interactive sessions. Everybody should have received a card in their name tag that will tell you what you signed up for. You can go to that, or you can go to another one. The room assignments are posted. And then after that, those sessions will end at 5:15, and you have a little time to mingle. The bookstore's open tonight until 7 p.m. All Lead It attendees receive a 15% discount at the bookstore, so please go down and get some nice jumbo gear. And then Alumni Lounge, starting at 5:30, we have an opportunity to see some of our current students. the same thing that the provost was talking about, getting to see some of the current research and work of the students. And then dinner is right back where we had lunch today. So the cards that you filled out, we're going to be collecting them in the back. Thanks again to the panel, and thank you to all of you for your help with Giving Tuesday.